The NBA draft, a mere 3 days away. Zion Williamson trade rumors are heating up, ladies and gentlemen. We are here. Brian Windhorst, ESPN, the Get Up crew. We're going to listen to what Brian has to say about Zion Williamson's future with the Pelicans.
And over again on this show and other places over the last few days. And we're coming down to the nitty gritty here. What should we be thinking about at this moment, Windy?
Well, the New Orleans Pelicans have really shown an interest in getting up to that pick number 2 at Charlotte or number 3 at Portland to try to draft, we believe, Scoot Henderson. The Hornets today.
To recap, last week when we first covered this, I thought the whole thing was a bluff. I thought the Pelicans were just trying to give Zion and the whole locker room a little reality check. Since then, it seems like there might be a little bit of truth to this. It seems like within the next 48 hours or so, there is a real possibility, and maybe Brian will change my mind here, but it sounds like there's a real possibility that Zion could be on his way out of New Orleans, and this Scoot Henderson thing could be legit.
According to Woj and Jonathan Gavone.
Percentage-wise, last week I would have said 80% it does not happen. As I sit here today, I'll say 55% it does happen, and Zion gets moved before the draft.
Are hosting both Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller, the candidates for that number 2 pick. What Charlotte does is vital for how the NBA moves forward, and that includes the Pelicans. I think if that pick is made available, or if number 3 by Portland is made available with Scoot Henderson on the board, I think New Orleans would be very interested in getting it, and that could lead to Zion Williamson being available. But what I just want to caution everybody about, Zion Williamson is not on the trade block. It is not an auction. I think the Pelicans are really interested in moving up, and that leaves everything on the table, including Zion, but it should be framed that way.
Now, that's interesting. Okay, that's the first time I've heard someone frame it that way, because everything we've heard is that the Pelicans are equally fed up with Zion as much as they want Scoot Henderson. And that is just kind of a kill two birds with one stone, where you can get rid of Zion, get rid of his contract, get rid of the off-court stuff, get rid of the OnlyFans, and get Scoot Henderson. That's kind of how it was framed to me. This is making it sound like they just want Scoot Henderson, and any piece and every piece, including Zion, could be on the table. So if that's the case, it's hard for me to imagine. If that is really the case, it's hard for me to imagine they can't put together a different package that wouldn't include Zion. Zion is it's a franchise shaping trade if they were to move off of Zion. I mean, that is a huge philosophical shakeup for the Pelicans, for their brand, for their team, for their locker room, all that stuff. So it's a whole lot to get Scoot Henderson.
And what were you trying to tell me a little while ago over here, Han, as I was sitting here and you were sort of going over, you're sitting there on your phone looking at what people are saying. What were you telling me people are saying?
Well, it's if Zion Williamson is available, that big market teams like the Knicks should be all in on him. And
That's exactly the opposite of what Brian just said. Brian just said, am I taking crazy pills? Brian just said Zion is everyone's available, thus Zion's available, but Zion is not on the trade block. This cat 10 seconds later says, well, if Zion's on the trade block, the Knicks should go get him. What's going on here? Is my man's earpiece not working? Did he not hear Brian?
What Wendy's saying is basically Zion Williamson is not, available in a trade. What he's saying is if you can get a high pick like that in this draft, you'd need a player like that to get there. So it's not as if he's open to everyone, Knicks fans. It's just in this specific situation.
And listen, I don't want to be the one who's sitting here saying this, but if you think that Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson are going to be great players, would you trade the opportunity to take them to take on everything that Zion Williamson seems to bring with him now?
This is the lowest Zion stock has ever been, IMO. And it's always interesting whenever you have off-court stuff, especially off-court stuff that isn't really that big of a deal. Like Zion didn't, he's not in drug rehab, or it's nothing like that. He's just kind of wrapped up in a weird situation with a porn star, basically. That's, in the grand scheme of things, for what athletes or celebrities or whatever can be quote unquote in trouble for, not that big of a deal. Ja Morant's situation is way worse than Zion. Zion's is more like memeable, Zion's is more kind of goofy, but is it really that bad? No. So if you're a team and you're looking at Zion's upside, and we've seen his upside for sure, and you can get him right now for Brandon Miller, for Scoot Henderson, why wouldn't you take the chance if you're a big market team? You know, I mean, that's why I kind of caution this, is that I don't know. The trade I saw was like Scoot Henderson and Gordon Hayward for Zion. And a year ago, I mean, Rudy Gobert got 5 first-round picks. You know what I mean? Like, if you go and look at the Rudy Gobert trade, the DeJounte Murray trade, Zion should be minimum be able to fetch what Rudy Gobert got.
Let's see. Let's just win now versus.
Is that the answer to the question? I mean, but win now? Is Zion Williamson helping you win now?
Change the scenery.
Let's go back to all the things he's won.
Look, if I'm the Charlotte Hornets, that's what I'm thinking. Change the scenery. Carolina, be home. Jordan's around. He's a Jordan Brand guy. Like, whatever it is, like, I'm thinking
Michael
those
Jordan
reasons.
Just sell that team?
He's still around, though.
Okay,
he's still there. And then he and LaMelo would be box office as long as they're both on the court together. That'd be nice. But if I'm trying to sell it, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we haven't been relevant in years. This might make us relevant.
If I was Charlotte doesn't need Scoot Henderson. Like, I don't think Scoot Henderson and LaMelo make sense as a backcourt, right? I would much rather have Zion than Scoot Henderson if I'm Charlotte. Even if you're taking on a huge amount of risk with how much is Zion going to play, how much is him and LaMelo. LaMelo's had injury problems in the past. Just the possibility, and like this young man with the jaw said, Charlotte has been nothing. Charlotte has been just irrelevant. They've been not even mediocre. They've been completely out of the picture of a competitive team or a fun team or a watchable team. This at least makes them relevant. This at least sells tickets. This at least gets people talking about the Hornets. And if you're Charlotte, I mean, maybe that's worth it enough.
That's the only thing I could think of.
And I would say, please don't let that person make our final decision. Because to me, you take yourself with you wherever you go. And the issues that Zion has run into in New Orleans do not get better or become less in a larger city. No.
That's for sure. But let's just say that the situation persists. Let's say Zion is always going to have lady problems. I would assume a majority of professional athletes have lady problems. You know, like I don't think what Zion is going through is very rare. I think it's rare by the way that this lady is acting on Twitter. You know, I think it might be rare to see the words that she's putting into sentences. I certainly have not seen a lot of those words in a row. You know, she's definitely getting out the thesaurus, no doubt about it. But how many pro athletes have ex-girlfriend problems, baby mama problems, love triangle problems? Everybody does, I would think. You know, so I think we're blowing up the Zion thing, the off the court stuff. I think we're blowing it up into something that's like, if you're a front office, is it that big of a deal? Are you worried about it at all? No. I'd be worried about his injury history. But if I'm a front office of some other team and I'm looking to trade for Zion, I'm not factoring in Mariah Mills's video history. I'm not factoring that in at all.
I mean, the magnifying glass usually does not change people. It just magnifies it. It just reveals more of what the problem is. Now, look, he's too young to just give up on. I agree with that. But, boy, right now he's someone's problem. I wouldn't want to make him mine. If the whole thing winds up getting turned around, then we can revisit the conversation.
It's interesting, though, because if he was that big of a problem, wouldn't there be?
The ads, man. ESPN, what are y'all doing putting ads on? ESPN, y'all don't make enough money?
Around the league that they're shopping around to see who wants them. Like, again, I think this pretty much shuts the door on the idea, we talked about it for a week, that Zion Williamson is available. This is strictly talking about a draft that's got the top 3 picks are very compelling picks, and there's a team that is considering the idea of what can we get for him. And there's another team saying, we love that pick, we love that player. You know, it would cost us a lot. I'd rather not give up Brandon Ingram, so maybe it costs us Zion. That's what this conversation's about. And again, if I'm the receiving team, I have to think long and hard about this guy is box office. We just got to get him right. That's why you think about it.
I'm being told, Bobby.
Let me throw a wrinkle into this. If Zion didn't have the injury issues, no one has brought up, right? If Zion didn't have the injury issue and we were strictly talking about off the field stuff, do any of y'all really see that as a huge problem from a GM? You know, like, he is box office. If he plays, he can be really good. He's young. He's exciting. No doubt about it. What is the drawback if you're a new team? I'm not saying for the Pelicans. If you're a new team, the Hornets or the Knicks or Houston or whoever, if you're that team, what is the drawback besides the injuries? What is the off-court drawback from Zion? I don't really see much. Honestly, what I think is going on is I think it's a slow news cycle. I think hockey just ended. I think, basketball just ended. It's just baseball where we have whatever it is, 60 days until college football, and they need stories. So Zion Williamson and this porn star and whatever has become the story, and they're just kind of fluffing it up on a daily basis. But I think at this point, it's gotten too far. I think with how they're kind of framing Zion.
Marks is with us here. We haven't planned to come in a little bit later, but I'm told that there he is. Look at Bobby.
Always
as
ready.
if by
What's up,
magic.
Bobby?
Bobby Marks is listening and can chime in here. Bobby, help me with this, because look, you've heard the conversation over the last few days, and maybe it's all it winds up being is conversation. But this is a player that we have been talking about now, it feels like, for a very long time. Jump in here.
Yeah, I'm not ready to kind of walk away from Zion Williamson, even if it's for the number 2 or number 3 pick here. I know we can talk about the games played, which is only 114 games, but when he is healthy, he is one of those players that you can build a franchise around here. And I'm willing to give it another year here, Greeny. And the contract doesn't scare me at all because it's such laden with whether it be games played or injury protection or weight clauses in here that if he does get hurt again, it's not like you're stuck with, $180 million plus of this salary here. So for me, even if 2 or 3 does become available at the end of the week, I'm still hesitant to move off him.
I understand that. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, you're definitely hesitant because he is a mercurial talent. 2 years ago, a year ago, Zion would have been talked about as possibly the brightest young star in the NBA. So to get him for the 2nd overall pick just seems cheap. Now, if there's a huge package, if it's Scoot, some pieces, a couple of draft picks, if it's all that, yeah, okay. If you think Scoot Henderson is that good, and it also is different for the Pelicans, because the Pelicans may know, like, all right, this isn't working. Zion in the locker room or Zion with the front office, like, there may be problems there. That is a whole different thing, where they may just want to get out of this chapter and get into the next chapter, whether that's Scoot Henderson or whoever else. So a team taking Zion on is completely different than why the Pelicans would want to move off of him. Relationships can sour, teammates and all that stuff cannot work out. The Pelicans are in kind of a weird transitional period where Ingram and McCollum kind of have to win now. They're aging. At the same time, they're young. Like, they're really young with Zion, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, players like that. They are young, but at the top end is kind of older. So I can see where the Pelicans are saying, look, let's try and blend this a little bit, get into a window, and let's try and win in the next 2 years, I guess, and then we'll move forward with a Scoot Henderson or whoever they end up getting in this Zion package.
Oh, that's fascinating to me. I would view it in the reverse, but that's why, look, it's a good conversation, and in the end, we'll see what winds up happening. In the meantime, Windy, while I have you, let me throw another name at you here, because with Bradley Beal being traded yesterday to Phoenix. Oh, by the way, if you're just waking up and had...
Okay, there you go. So now they're on to Bradley Beal. Let me know in the comments what you think, guys. I'm kind of back and forth on this. I understand it from both sides. I understand why a team would want to take a chance on Zion. I understand the value in that. I also understand why the Pelicans may want to move off of him, and why the Pelicans may just want to say, look, this is a blip on the radar. Let's just kind of reshape the locker room, reshape the team, reshape whatever, and get away from Zion. You got to remember, like, the Pelicans have suffered through 4 years of Zion averaging less than 30 games a year. You know, the Knicks haven't done that. The Hornets haven't done that. The Rockets haven't done that. So those teams may be saying, like, maybe his injury problems are behind him. This off the court stuff has dropped his value. It's time to jump in. So it's a really weird situation. Again, I said this last week. I still hold on to it. I want them to move off of Zion because of what I just described, because of the 4 years that I've gone through as a fan dealing with Zion. If we can get an exciting young player or a package of role players and picks, I think it might be time. Let me know in the comments below what you think, ladies and gentlemen. We're only a couple days away, so potentially we could the next video we make could be reacting to a Zion trade. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.